distinguished guests, dear colleagues and friends. I know this is very tricky to start the session after the lunch break. My name is Levan Karanadze, and currently I represent Georgia and chairman of Georgian Air Navigation Service Providers Supervisory Board, the council. And in parallel, also I'm chairman of ICAO ESPG, which stands for European Aviation System Planning Group. This is the PERG and the RASC merged into one group. It's my pleasure to welcome you to this afternoon session, which is entitled, the panel's name is Zero Fatalities, the Impossible Mission, Reimagining Safety and Security in the Age of Innovation. During the session, we will discuss the bold vision which is presented in the ICAO Strategic Plan for 2026-2050. The vision calls for zero fatalities in international aviation due to accidents or cyber threats or unlawful interference. This vision is mirrored also in the Global Aviation Safety Plan, ICAO's Global Safety Strategy, which calls for zero fatalities as aspirational goal. And the notion of aspirational goal and the zero fatalities will be in the center of today's panel discussion. Aviation is a dynamic industry, and we are constantly facing new challenges as it evolves. Through our discussions this afternoon, we will explore what it takes to move from the vision to reality, and explore how past challenges may serve as the lessons learned to set foundation for a robust global aviation system that prevents future failures and accidents. To do so, I'm joined on the stage by esteemed panelists, very good speakers. So without further ado, I would like to introduce my good speakers. And first is Ms. Maria Rueda, who is from EASA, European Aviation Safety Agency, and Maria is dealing with, she's Safety, Management, Sustainability and Global Outreach Director in EASA. Maria leads the European Plan for Aviation Safety that outlines the strategic priorities shared by EASA and its member states for aviation safety and environmental protection. Also, she is actively involved in international cooperation and EASA's Data for Safety program. So I look forward to hearing from Maria her views both as regional but also at a global perspective. Next speaker will be Mr. Stuart Fox, who is Director of Flight and Technical Operations at the International Air Transport Association, IATA. Stuart leads IATA's teams that are responsible for flight and technical operations as well as air traffic management. He has more than 30 years experience in the management of various aspects of airline and business jet operations, including crew training, regulatory affairs, and line operations. It's also worth mentioning that IATA itself, with its 360 member airline companies, carry about 85% of the world's air traffic. So I think Stuart is very well positioned to bring very interesting insights from the airline perspective and from the different fields of not just safety, but also operations and air traffic management. Mr. Keyot K. Arivodola is the Director of Global Safety for Europe, Middle East, and Africa at the Boeing. Kay helps to shape and execute regional safety strategies in support of Boeing enterprise goals and integrate them with global, regional, and state safety programs. Throughout his time with Boeing, Kay has held several senior engineering roles in aircraft design, testing, and validation, and regulatory engagement also. So I look forward to also hearing his views from the manufacturer's perspective. Our next speaker is Captain Cristina Perez-Cottrell. She is an aviation safety advocate for Air Crash Victims Families Federation International. Christina has vast experience in operational safety, standardization of procedures, and crew training, including as a crew resource management facilitator. She has also been actively involved in initiatives that promote aviation safety and support the memory of air accident victims. So I think Christina will bring some unique perspectives in terms of focusing on human side of aviation, since we often discuss fatal accidents in terms of numbers and KPIs and rates, but must not forget about the human and the personal side of the problem evolved as a result of accidents. Last but not least, we are joined by Mr. Fabio Rabbani. Fabio is a regional director of ICAO's South American region, SAM region. Fabio is responsible for the work of the SAM office, which together with its member states develops and implements the regional aviation safety plan for South American states. The name is South American Regional Safety Plan, which is aligned with the global plans of ICAO. He also manages important regional cooperation projects, including the Regional Cooperation System for Safety Oversight and the Digital Communications Network for South America. With his extensive experience in regional cooperation, I'm sure that he will bring, and we will have an interesting insight into the challenges and opportunities into the region and how those may benefit other regions in the sector. Thank you very much in advance. At the end of the session, I will try to figure out a little bit of time for the audience for questions, but we'll see how it goes. I hope we'll have a nice discussion. Thank you again for being with me. And we start with Maria. So Maria, implementing global safety enhancement initiatives at the state level often requires regional safety planning and implementation as a key driver, bringing together stakeholders within the region. But as the European Union Aviation Safety Agency, what are those key challenges which have you and your organization has encountered while addressing states with different safety management capabilities?
Thank you very much for the question, Levan, and it's a very relevant one. So, as many of you know, EASA is made by 27 member states of the European Union, plus 4 EFTA states, so this is 31 member states, not as big as ICAO, but we are trying to bring this regional approach to safety management, identification of risks, and mitigation of risks. And of course, it is difficult tasks because there are, one thing is the regulations, which are standard across all the member states, but the implementation of the regulations sometimes are not done exactly the same in each member state. And this is due to the size, is due to the capabilities, is due to the capacity as well of some CAs that don't have enough resources, or the size of their industry as well that requires more or less capacity to accommodate the oversight. So at EASA, we've been for quite a long time trying to figure out how to standardize the approach of the implementation of the regulations. And the main things that we do, understanding the challenges, are to basically provide proportionate regulations that are risk-based, meaning that we address the risks of the different areas, and then we use data to understand the risks, and then apply a proportional approach to mitigation. This means that then, even if you have limited resources, we can put the resources where it matters most. So this proportional and risk-based approach to oversight is helping to bring all the countries together. Other things that we do as well is, instead of doing oversight that is task-orientated, we do a system-orientated oversight. This means that we bring different disciplines together, and we provide a standardized way to oversee an organization that has different functions, like maintenance, design, production, and so on and so forth. And now that we have incorporated, for example, Part IS that address cybersecurity risks, we bring as well a team that comprises all those capabilities so we can assess an organization as a system, not per domain. Other things that we do as well is transparent and very inclusive rulemaking. So our rulemaking process engages with all the different stakeholders, all the member states, but as well industry. So we have collaborative groups at technical level, but as well at more strategic level through the MAB and the SAB, that are the member states and the industry equivalent groups, where we share all the rulemaking plan for the year and the years to come, and we engage trying to gather all the views from all the stakeholders. This means that when we come up with a new regulation, there is a very good awareness of what is coming, and therefore how the implementation is going to be. We spend as well quite a lot of time in producing guidance material to provide a harmonized way to implement these regulations. And then we have something that is called the standardization process, where we audit the member states to make sure that the implementation of the regulations are done in a harmonized way, but as well if we identify any deficiencies to support the member states with implementation and oversight. So we make sure that the whole European system hopefully has a harmonized approach to oversight. It's not easy, and of course we keep working on it. We keep understanding best practices from some member states and sharing with all the rest. So basically, we don't leave anybody behind, aligned with the principle of ICAO of no country left behind. Finally, we have a very strong process that we will discuss a little bit later for safety risk management that is underpinned by two very good tools, CARES for occurrences and Data for Safety, which is a big data platform that allow us to gather a lot of information and fuse that information to have a very detailed risk picture that in the future will be more predictive than reactive, which is what currently most of the NAAs deal with. So just as a conclusion, a regional system has proven to be an efficient way to integrate, the way to oversee, to make sure that no country is left behind, but we keep learning. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maria. Yes, just to mention that there are 27 states plus EFTA countries, but the country I come from, and we have comprehensive agreement with the European Union and its member states. So it's luckily the influence of EASA is also stretches beyond those 31 states, because there are also other states and they are represented here also. And I don't know what's because it was mentioned in the early morning session that also Maghreb states and Morocco has got comprehensive agreements. So there are plenty of other states who are striving to implement EU standards, and then we have very good cooperation with EASA, and you are really, I mean, I can commend that there is a transparency there. Myself, I used to participate in management board meetings, our experts from Georgia participating in different panels of EASA as observers. And so I would say that this is a great job you are doing there. But you mentioned yourself e-cares and data for safety, and my next question is related to the metrics part. So as we strive for zero fatalities, the aspiration, the ambitious goal, and I hope this is a realistic one still, we need to have a clear metrics to track the progress and outcomes, or where we are to benchmark. So are current safety measures truly capturing what matters? And are we measuring the right things to achieve the goal of zero fatalities?
Thank you. This is a difficult question because right now, as you all know, we are living the most complex time in civil aviation, as we have more traffic than ever, less airspace than ever due to conflict zones. We have as well new risks that are coming from cybersecurity, new weather patterns, and other sources. And we have as well new entrants that as well will include complexity and risks into the system. So how to accommodate all these different factors into the risk picture and make sure that we can identify the mitigation actions and then, have a follow-up where we are striving to have zero fatalities, which is an ambition, but of course we know that is not today the reality. So basically, what we are doing is moving towards this more preventive way to do risk management as opposed to reactive. And the first thing that we have done is to bring more sources of information. So of course, we have occurrence reporting through ECARES, but we have as well all the information from accidents and safety recommendations. We have as well FDM information from the flight deck, information from air navigation service provider, from airports, from airlines, and many other stakeholders that are part of the Data for Safety program. And this allows us to have a much wider and richer data set that then, of course, has to be processed to understand what the data is telling us. But data alone is not the solution. So the expert judgment and the collaborative approach that we have, as I said before, with member states and industry is what really brings the richness to the risk identification. So through the safety risk management process at EASA, we have strengthened the process to bring all these data sources, but as well we strengthen the governance. So we have several layers of governance that starts from the technical level when we engage with industry and member states to gather the information, analyze it, and bring the technical and the expert judgment. And then we have a next level of governance, which is done internally at EASA at head level from flight standard certification and safety management colleagues. And then they bring the candidates' top safety topics. In the past, we didn't have a prioritization in terms of safety issues. We had around, in the past, 200 safety issues, which were not per se prioritized. These days, we have come up this year with 11 top safety topics that are made of safety issues, and they belong to different key risk areas. And that way, we are able to identify what are the things that are most important for the European system to mitigate. And we have an action plan that addresses short, medium, and long-term actions to mitigate those risks. We follow up on the implementation of the actions, and then we analyze the risk again to see if we mitigated it. In terms of actions, it could be rulemaking, research, safety promotion, member state tasks, or industry tasks as well. So basically, it's involving the whole spectrum of stakeholders in terms of mitigation. And the other big thing that we have included on this year, last year, is the benchmark. So aviation is global. It's not what we do in Europe. It's what we do globally to mitigate these risks, because I will be surprised if in different regions of the world you have complete different safety risks. I would like to think that we share very much so the safety risks and as well the mitigation actions. So we want to share with all of you what we see through our priorities in terms of top safety topics, and hear from you and learn from you in terms of what you see in your regions. So basically, all these have come up with, as I say, a piece of work that then will fit into the EPAS, the European Plan of Aviation Safety. And then this is what we publish every year. And it's basically in coordination as well with the GASP, the Global Aviation Safety Plan, the Regional Aviation Safety Plan. We are working very much in close proximity with the Euronat office in Paris and Nicolas Rayo. And as well, all the member states will translate the EPAS into their national safety aviation plans. So that's the whole cycle. Apologies, it's a long answer.
No, it's fine.
It was a difficult question.
It's always a pleasure to listen to you and to EASA management. Well, in terms of EPAS being a very important document, apparently not only for EASA states, but also for us in the wider region, because Euronat region covers 56 states. This is the biggest region in ICAO family, and we are happy because me as the chairman of European Aviation System Planning Group, exactly one of the main topics which we are dealing with is to deal with GAMP and GASP implementation, GASP on the global level, but on the regional level. And I think then Fabio will be talking about the SAM experience, but I can speak about a little bit about the European experience. Yes, we incorporate a lot of data and a lot of actions which are already captured by EPAS and experts there. The quick follow-up question I have with respect to the massive data you are analyzing. Is there any plan to use artificial intelligence, or you already do it?
Yeah, definitely. We are already using AI. The first stage is aiming at making sure that we clean up the occurrences, meaning there are sometimes events that have been reported by different stakeholders about the same event. So for example, an ANSP, an airline, and the airport.
Yes.
So AI is correlating all this information, making sure that we understand is one event reported by 3 parties, and we are as well eliminating duplicates, we are cleaning the information, and we are as well processing a huge amount of information that otherwise it wouldn't be possible. That's why the use of this platform wisely is a big game changer for us to understand and be more predictive as opposed to reactive in terms of risk management.
Thank you, Maria, for this. I have last question. I mean, not last, but I mean, the third question to you. It's a little bit tricky one. It's regarding if the global vision is it the global 2050 vision in terms of zero fatalities realistic if the state of play in some parts of the world is decades ahead of the other parts? Are we just setting the rest of the world up to fail by imposing standards that they cannot afford, or it's very difficult for them to implement?
Thank you. Yeah, again, another interesting question. I mean, the safety standards should not be adjusted. The safety standards are the ones that we basically establish to make sure that the system is safe and that people can keep flying safely. But what we can do is adjust the implementation to different states that have different size, that have different capabilities and capacities, and then support the implementation stage through technical cooperation projects, through sharing best practices, through ICAO, sharing information with ICAO, sharing tools, sharing intelligence and information. So that's something that can be done. We are as well lucky to live in a digital era, so basically there could be digital leapfrog advances that, you know, states that have less maturity can actually move way forward than in the past and actually be able to do a safety risk management tasks that is proportional to their industry and still keep the system safe. We as well very much promote a performance-based approach to regulations and implementation of the regulations because, again, you can assess the maturity and the need for more or less oversight of several organizations. And then you can play with your resources and prioritize when it's needed most. And that can be done in any state. So there's not something that is attached to mature or immature states. So all those things apply and can be applied to all the states. Going regional, the regional approach is very, very much successful because you can pull resources, you can pull regulations, you can pull training. So basically you can do way more with less and support those states that have less capacity or capability. And we are very much supporting RSOs and the approach of ICAO to RSOs to make sure that, you know, states support each other regarding the different capabilities that they have. And finally, we try through the international cooperation projects that we have directly with regions, states, and ICAO to share all these best practices, what we see. As I said, our top safety topics will be everywhere. I mean, this is something to share with everybody, so hopefully it will help other states to understand the risks and mitigate them as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. And that's exactly in the spirit and in the heart of ICAO's No Country Left Behind idea and notion. Well, I will release you for a moment, and I think we've done it already quite some time. I have to be cautious of the timing, yes. And I move to Stuart. Hi there. Okay. Stuart, when we look at accident data and the number of accidents, and more importantly, fatal accidents, we are dealing with a statistically minimal number of events from which we can draw lessons learned. For states moving from a reactive to a proactive or even predictive approach to safety management, this is a very challenging task, already has been mentioned by Maria as well. Since the type of data needed to support such approach lays primarily within the industry, So they are the frontline officers. To manage safety in an ever-changing environment with emerging issues and new safety risks, what has industry done so far to stay ahead of the evolving risks, and what can they do differently when looking into the next few years or the decades ahead?
Great question. And as Maria already mentioned, it's an ever-changing environment and new risks are on the horizon as we speak. So IATA, as you mentioned, represents approximately 360 members. We do have a database. It's called a data sharing program. It's under a structure called the Global Aviation Data Management, GADM, program. And it consists of a couple of programs. One is IDX, Information Data Exchange. We've got about 320 plus members in that, which is great news and growing. We've also got a flight data exchange program with 220 plus members. And as we mentioned, it's one community, so the idea is to share the information and insights, etc., in these databases to help set up benchmarks for the globe, regions, and even at airport level. So we can set our safety performance indicators to help drive safety improvement, which I think is important. The GADM analysis is used at, as I mentioned, global, regional levels in meetings to raise safety concerns and trigger enhancements, which would be the proactive part of it, to look to mine the data. Data is fantastic, but it's the analysis and insights that you need to make a difference. We've also, you mentioned earlier today, artificial intelligence. We've added an AI tool to enhance the usefulness of GADM for the timely detection by operators of unwanted trend variations, which I think is another useful function when you're looking at alerts that might bring the attention of the operator to take some proactive safety actions. Then on the other hand, if you wanted to type in Google Safety Issue Hub, we've set up a repository for the benefit of the global community. The concept behind this is everybody's in safety together. We want to make sure the ones who need the benefit can gain access to the information they need. So this repository consists of a database or repository of hazards, aviation hazards, safety risks, and in that repository it will exchange the prioritized use of information for the delivery of safety improvements. So it includes things like risk assessments are in there. There's also documents that would be appropriate to be reviewed by the airlines that will go together with those risk assessments to help implement safety improvements across the board. So like I said, you can type in Google and type in Safety Issue Hub and you can have access to that, and it's free. Also, on the basis of issues identified, we're using those proactively in our IOSA program. So we've got risk-based IOSA, so we can focus on the emerging risks, the ones that have been identified at a global and regional level as appropriate to tailor the oversight of those operators in our IOSA program. So that's what we're doing. What do we need in the future, and what do we see needs to be sorted out? Operational data still is very much fragmented across organizations. I mean, risks can go across an organization, not in one part of it, so they need to be shared, and they need to be aware across the organization as well. Also, the focus needs to be on breaking down silos across aviation ecosystems. That includes sharing of information and data, of course. And we need to make sure we can do that, because otherwise we're not going to get any organizational learning, which is the main thing. We need to have resilience, and to do that we need to learn. We also need to enhance our analytical capability, which I know is a great thing we've got. We've mentioned AI, that's a possibility going forward. But the more capability in the analysis, the more we have in terms of insights and actions that we can take. It's not the quantity of data we're looking for, it's the insights and analytical capability. And we need to enhance the safety information flows, not just looking at reports. They need to be back into operations to learn lessons and implement solutions in training. It's great having reports, but we need the lessons learned from those reports that need to be implemented. And last but not the least is we need to make sure we improve our culture, safety culture in the organizations, in fact across the industry, if we're going to benefit and reach the aspirational goals you mentioned in 2050.
Thank you, Stuart. And the quick one is with respect to the data and the information, and you already mentioned, and to what extent the industry then shares it with aviation authorities, like NAAs or CAAs? What's your practice on that from IATA side? Because I will tell you from my previous background there, we signed agreement with IATA to exchange the information which was captured on it was voluntary based, of course. You have to ask the airline company as well, but there was a process in place. Not to have it only for yourself and for your industry, but also to share it with the regulatory authorities. What's your progress on that?
So good question. At a high level, you've probably all seen the IATA safety report. That's showing our analysis that we've done on the accidents, etc. We do share information, but it's got to be anonymized. It's got to be aggregated. We're not sharing individual information of any incident or information that we get into IATA. Of course, we have to protect the information, otherwise we don't get the information shared in the first place. And we do, as I mentioned, provide that information for the use in global and regional meetings, and it can go right down to airport level details. For example, indicators that we might identify in that analysis by our GADM team.
All right. Well, thank you. With the increase of so-called hybrid operations or more and more AI coming into the system or digitalized world, there is a line between safety and security which is blurring a little bit, and we can already confirm that. So how do we prepare the airline industry to manage cyber threats that could cause unlawful interference, which is also mentioned in the ICAO strategic plan as part of the zero fatalities vision by 2050?
A great question, and it's one that's very appropriate at the moment, I think, as we notice there's a huge increase in geopolitical issues that's affecting large airspace blocks in terms of GNSS interference would be a good example. That's a cyber issue that's cropped up. For example, jamming and spoofing. We see that threat at the moment, and it's been an increasing one as we see these conflict zones increasing. And it's one that can't be totally eliminated. So it has to be dealt with by the safety management system, which must step in, basically. So what we need is harmonized procedures for the crew and ATC to make sure they can deal with the information. So that's what's been implemented to deal with this threat. Increased robustness of the GNSS operations, including navigation and surveillance capabilities. So when an airline, for example, looks at this threat, they have to look at the whole network where they're going to operate the aircraft and make sure that the other systems they rely on, so I mentioned surveillance and other navigation, is robust down the network. That's what I mean by that. We also need to make sure we collaborate across the industry because cyber won't just be in one part of the industry, it could be in another. And also it crosses borders, it's borderless. We also need to cooperate with the military because, of course, the military have information as well, and they are impacted and sometimes by these threats. And so it's sensible to do that. We do need to have better training to deal with these threats in detail, not just, in other words, what do we need to look at to make the crew or ATC anticipate the impact to operations. So that's an important one. For example, increase in unmanned aircraft systems is where we might see an increasing cyber threat. So that needs to be considered. It needs to be considered by the states in regulations and also certification of this equipment, and to make sure the regulations are adhered to. The other thing is that we should ensure that these type of operations don't impact commercial operations around airports. and we need to make sure we coordinate with other stakeholders. The other one would be, I think, AI. AI is widely being implemented, not just in our industry, but across the board, I think. So technologies that have AI could be vulnerable. So that needs to be considered in terms of safety and cyber-related threats. For example, information security, where AI is used in tools, needs to be considered. What are we doing about that issue? We are, later this year, going to plan a detailed safety risk assessment on the safety and security risks associated with the use of AI in the future. So that, I think, is a good step that we're making. And by the way, to do that, we interface with our members, we interface with our other parties, strategic partners, to do those risk assessments and get the maximum input. And of course, equipment manufacturers. Also, the IOSA standards manual has already been amended to include a requirement, it's actually a recommendation, on cyber security. It will become a standard on the 1st of January 2027. That is aligned with Annex 17. And it requires operators to identify critical information systems and implement risk-based measures to prevent unlawful interference, which I would think is for sure sensible. The other thing is that we've got a new aviation security expert group that's been set up this year, and that it consists of airlines and strategic partners to monitor, share, and influence cybersecurity standards and the impacts of those threats on security and safety in order to have a more resilient system. They also contribute to the guidance related to IOSA standards, so that, in other words, they keep it up to date. And as an observer in the ICO cybersecurity panel, we also contribute to updating best practice and the cybersecurity manual, as well as to identify gaps in ICO SARPs where the cybersecurity provisions are not covered. So that's something we're doing in partnership with the other stakeholders involved.
Stuart, thank you very much for the very comprehensive and detailed answers and reply. As it has been mentioned in the morning session as well, airlines are recovering from the massive financial shifts due to the COVID problem we had years ago, but also the regional conflicts does not help, and the current crisis, which brought the prices of the kerosene to skyrocket prices. So how do you think is that the zero fatality goal objective? Is that only affordable for the wealthiest companies, airline companies, the strongest ones, or there is a business case for that?
Good question, but I don't think it's appropriate to attribute safety to wealth, for sure. It's not about wealth. IOSA audits, we've already proven that compliance with requirements and safety standards is not about airlines' budget. We've seen that ourselves in the evidence coming back from those audits. And I think I can quote James Reason, if anybody knows James Reason, Professor James Reason. Safety has always been a balance between production and protection. I guess with an unlimited budget, which would be very nice, it doesn't necessarily mean safety is improved. It's how it's deployed. How that budget is deployed will determine the safety outcomes. So the budget would need to be allocated appropriate to the size and complexity and the context, specific characteristics of the airline in which that budget is going to be implemented. For example, simple tools can have a massive impact on safety performance. Simple tools. Complex implementation of systems or software, etc., could actually expose the operators to increased complexity and potentially new safety risks. What is important, I think, is to build a positive safety culture. if we are going to aspire to 0 fatalities. For example, to evidence that goal, IATA has a safety leadership charter where we seek the commitment of all CEOs to implement positive safety cultures in the organization and drive that throughout the organization from top down, and of course feed that from the bottom up. We have 220 signatures on that, and it's growing, which is great to see. And the thing is, 0 fatalities in what you mentioned earlier, human-centered, very complex industries is for sure complex and aspirational. All stakeholders need to be have a safety mindset and also adhere to these safety culture principles. That's the only way we can reach that for sure.
Thank you, Stuart. Thank you very much. I should move on because we have only 35 minutes, less than 35 minutes left, and I turn now to Key. Manufacturers that already have been mentioned here. So, Key, the mic is fine?
Sure.
Yeah, good, thank you. What is the, I have to cross-check as a controller, air traffic control. What is one root cause of safety failures that you feel that industry, regulators and manufacturers alike is still not addressing effectively enough to reach the 2050 goal?
Sure, thank you for leading us in this conversation. And it's a pleasure to be able to represent the manufacturers here.